America. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By honoring your sacred vocation of education, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. At Grand Canyon University, our online bachelor's, master's, and doctoral education degree programs allow you to balance online coursework with observational and hands-on experience in the field. Find your purpose at GCU. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of the Northland Sports Page. Happy Saturday, everybody. It's Brian Prudhomme. It's Dave Cook. It is the final day of August. We talk about the dog days of August. No wonder why my dogs were so loud this morning. It's their last shot. Happy August 31st. Happy long weekend. Yes, grab a microphone, Dave Cook. That is helpful.
What am I missing?
I was going to say, you look like a little kid who gets lost in the mall. You're just standing in the middle, looking to your left, looking to your right, and everything you need was either direction, and you just froze.
Yep. I couldn't figure out what it was I was missing.
Well, during the intro song, you were lip-syncing to me, I Can't Hear Squat, and I thought, is your headset plugged in? I felt like a caretaker for just a moment because I was looking around going, does he have everything?
It's just very loud. And then I forgot to turn it down when you started speaking, and then my filling and my teeth rattled.
There you go.
You're louder than the song.
There you go. That's what I try to do. I try to wake everybody up when we get it going.
Caffeine this morning.
Oh, I don't know about that. We had plenty last night during our first high school football coverage of the year.
Yes, we did. That was fun.
It was. Not so fun if you're the Proctor Rails because Hermantown, they took the hammer and they hammered their way to it. 72-0, the final in that one.
Yeah, and again, I'm not sure it was that close ever. The Hermantown did what they wanted when they wanted the entire night, and the thing we talked about is Proctor looked better as the game went on, and I think they were learning some things.
Right.
But, boy, that Hermantown team just came on like a house of fire and never stopped. And here's the thing. I told Dana what the score was, and she said, well, they should have taken their starters out earlier. No, they had like 7 people score touchdowns last night. Hermantown used it as a training session, too. Their second team played most of the second half.
Right. We talked about it could be teachable moments throughout the game, even though the scoreboard had pretty much concluded the mystery to the game by the end of the first half.
Yep.
And again, it'll be fun to see what people learned on both sides from game 1 into game 2 because you've got Proctor again next week in their home opener.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. I mean, there's a couple things that I'd really like to see from Criv's team. One is protect the ball more. Whether that be the snap from center or we saw it a couple times where they would run an option and not option anybody. You know, they would just pitch it all of a sudden. And so those things can get taken care of. I think that they're at least heading in the right direction, right? They're young.
Yeah.
And
again, when we looked at the program, we were talking to our connections in Proctor, and I said, guys, who's your quarterback? Because nobody positionally says that. And everybody kind of went, we're not sure. I'm not sure they were sure.
And I'm not sure they figured it out yet. We were talking this morning in the car that one of them ran pretty well, and the other one threw better than the first one. And so you're kind of in that same spot. What kind of offense are you going to run? And so I think if they clean up some of the ball mistakes, that they're not as bad as 72-0 to another team. But Hermantown's got so much size and speed that they're just going to be a handful for everybody. So it was, I guess what I'm saying is, if you're a Proctor fan, kind of ignore the score. It was a terrible matchup for you because of size. And towards the end of the game, towards the end of half, you guys got a little bit better. Like, I think they made a quick little step there.
And as we said during the postgame, if you're Hermantown, your stars came out in game 1 because Alex Schaap was very good, Landon Berg was very good, Corbin Peterson had one of the best runs of the night. You look at what Aiden Adamski did. He's a new addition that Zags was talking about last week. He was good. And the defense just made plays.
Well, and the lines on both sides, and again, Proctor's small, right? But the lines on both sides were dominant. On the touchdown passes, I'm not sure there was anybody within 6 yards of shot anytime you had the ball to throw. There was one play, Brian, we were talking about on the air, where he rolled out to the right, and I believe it was Adamski came with him as a running back to kind of pick up Adamski could have just stood around and grabbed a snack, and there was just nobody there. Their offensive line was Humphreys and them were dominant.
But the good news is it was week 1 for a lot of area teams. Duluth-Denfeld with a victory. They went to Mora and won. Duluth East with a victory. They went to Esco and won. 2 Harbors took care of Cloquet. Superior went out to Stevens Point. Stevens Point got the win in that one. But the fun of that whole dissertation, if you will, Dave Cook, was just giving prep scores. It's good to have it back.
It is good to have it back. And we're pretty Duluth-centric. We admit that. But Denfeld running up score like that bodes well for them. How about East going to Esco and win? Esco, just the E on the field gives them 7 points, right? You're behind when you walk in the door. And East overcame that. And we haven't been a huge fan of the East football program for a while. And if they can do this, people, I think Duluth East fans and alumni and all that are waiting, busting at the seams to have a good football team. Maybe this is the year it starts.
Well, I will tell you this. As a Duluth East alum, I'm not going to back your statement that we haven't been a big fan of the Duluth East football program because I'd like to keep my job there. I enjoy them very much. But there is a new cast of characters led by a new leader, Blaine Tatro. Congratulations, 1-0.
Yeah, congrats. I mean, again, it's the fact that they went to Esco and didn't let the big E on the carpet scare them.
They let their own big E do the storytelling.
That's good stuff. So, I mean, it was a really nice weekend, or Friday and Thursday, I guess, for local sports, local football.
And to tie it all back in, my public speaking teacher would be so proud of me because we brought up Proctor, we brought up Esco. We just set the table for next Friday's matchup on these airwaves.
Yes, and so we're going to get a team that's small and learning versus a team that got their butts kicked, even though the score was close. I'm sure they don't feel close with Esco, and Esco is going to want to make amends. And Proctor's got some things to learn, and we'll see if they take any of the lessons.
Well, and you talked about with Esco, you said the E on the field. I think it's an igloo if you want to be honest, but with the Esco kind of aura, if you will, there's a certain amount of fear that gets instilled into different teams. But this Esco team is super young too. I hope they don't fall victim to we got to be Esco, we got to be incredible. You just have to learn.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Football's that way. You have to be better than you were last week. And there's more time than in other sports to get better at it. So I think it's going to be fun. I hope next weekend is fun. I hope Proctor did learn some things. And if Esco's young, it'll be a better test for them. And so that's the goal for next Friday.
Absolutely, but we're going to live in the now and talk about this weekend because for most of us, and I say most because somebody out there is listening to the radio screaming, going, I got to go to work on Monday, so I'm not going to generalize everybody. But it is Labor Day weekend. It is the extra day Monday for most of us to enjoy kind of the swan song of summer. Now, I understand, calendar-wise, it's late September by the time summer officially goes away. But this is northeastern Minnesota. It could go away in a week if you're not careful.
That's right. So leaves
go away in an hour sometimes.
Leaves have already started changing, man. And that's always the red flag, that enjoy the weather that you got now because it's coming.
Absolutely. When it comes to various holidays, I always like when I can learn the true meaning of a holiday. And with your day job, you were able to speak to me in detail about what Labor Day really means.
Yeah, this is the holiday where we celebrate the guys and gals who are busting knuckles and getting things done to help the country. And I've been talking for the last 3-4 years about helping people get into the construction trades, and this is as good a day to talk about it as any. The opportunities are there. If you're looking for a career and you want to work outside and with your hands, there's no better way.
Absolutely. So for Labor Day weekend, most businesses take a break. We're very thankful that the businesses that back us on this show, the Northland Sports Page, they never seem to take a break.
Exactly, Brian. We'll start with Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing. Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai. Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance. Assisted Living Locators. www.assistedlivinglocators.org/Duluth. Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Ferguson Bath and Kitchen, the Blackwoods Group, including their locations on London Road, Tavern on the Hill, their location in Two Harbors, and their location in Proctor. Also, the OG, the OG, Arola Architecture Studio, Hoops Brewing, ABS Auto Solutions, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, and Comfort Systems of Duluth.
And you mentioned ABS. Don't forget, when you mention ABS, when you go there, make sure you heard about it on this show as part of your conversation. You get an extra discount.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fantastic part. But as we were talking to start this whole thing in, pay attention to the weather, right? Because what ABS can do for your car and save its life a little bit longer, right? With the rust that comes with having a car in northeastern Minnesota. I mean, you drove in with me in my Aspen today, and we should have used ABS 10 years ago because right now it doesn't look like it's going to last a whole lot longer. And that's the sort of thing that ABS can do to your new car, which you're super proud of, and keep it around a little longer.
Absolutely. Speaking of keeping it around a little bit longer, keep us around until noon today. We got a jam-packed show, going to be fun. Dave Hoops will be along. He'll be about 10:45, 10:50. I'm going to talk to Derek Montgomery. And Derek Montgomery, you can have multifaceted conversations about because he's a terrific sports photographer, He's certainly built a foundation in that industry, but now he's literally building a foundation to help young athletes. I'm on board.
I'm super interested in hearing about it. Derek's one of the good guys in town, right? He's involved in every sport. I see him at every game I do.
Right. I know I have a busy schedule, and then I look at his and go, we can't be that much different.
Right. And so he's the kind of guy, frankly, and his family is the kind of family that you see the wisdom and you'd like to support the program. So I'm interested in hearing more about it.
Absolutely. I'm interested to see just who we're going to hear more about it from, if it's just going to be Derek or if his wife Kristin will join us too, because I've known her for a long time, and it sounds like Derek might be doing more of the moving parts to it, but the brainchild was his wife.
I think Derek would agree with that the brainchild is his wife, 100%. I've talked
on just about any topic.
I've talked to him about it. Yes, so that's absolutely true.
Someone from the family Montgomery will be 10:30.
Yes.
That'll be followed by Dave Hoops, and then the 11 o'clock hour, it's going to get very, very football-centric in Vikings world specifically, because 11:05 PA will be here. It's been a while.
Yeah, no doubt. Timing's perfect. This is his last week to take a deep breath before the season starts, and been a lot of moving parts in Egan, so it'll be fun to see.
And then 11:25, we'll play buy or sell, and I think most people will buy the final segment. Drawing lines will be Vincey Glenn. It has not been a while since we've talked to him.
No, that's good, but I was telling you earlier this week, somebody called me, a buddy of mine called and said, Vincey on this weekend? And I said, absolutely. And he said, good, I'm going to listen. I'm like, wait a minute. You must
so if he wasn't, does that mean
you must listen enough to know that you like Vincey? So what do you mean you're going to listen?
Well, I know Vincey has a fan club, because I always joke that if we have one listener per show, it's probably my mother, and I know her interest level spikes when Vincey's involved too.
Well, and it helps that we've had him on so long. There's expectations that people have when we talk football with Vincey, and he never fails to deliver.
There's one thing about Vincey's radio segments: he always seems to bring his lunch bucket to the equation. He's a hard worker, and with Labor Day weekend, that's actually going to be part of our opening topic today, both current and historically speaking. The lunch bucket players, it's a phrase that maybe gets overused in sports, but still has good meaning. We're going to talk about lunch bucket players for the Big Four in Minnesota.
Yeah, and Vincey's one of them that we could talk about. Those guys that effort, regardless of their talent level, but show up every weekend and gives 100% of everything. And when you watch them, you notice that. It's not just that everybody does their best, right? But you see guys that do that little bit extra. They just kind of step off the screen a little bit too.
Right.
That's the kind of guys we're talking about.
I will be a little bit interested. I know you have written questions for Vincey that we'll get to when he's on, and I don't do that. That's the fundamental difference between the two of us, is preparation for you is important. Preparation for me, you put an H on the end and it's a medication, but that's completely different because I'm a pain in the you-know-where. But I think for Vincey,
is that an elbow thing?
A good question. No. So you don't know your bleep from your elbow? Did you just prove that? Fair enough. All right. So for Vincey, though, I would be curious to ask him, who's the biggest lunch bucket type player you played with?
Yeah, maybe the question could be expanded with some other terms. Who's the player you were most proud of with? Who are the ones that you went, oh my gosh, I got this guy to cover for now? It'll be just interesting. We probably can't have a lot of that on the radio, but it sure would be fun over a cup of coffee to have that conversation.
It will be, but fun over about the next 15 minutes. We'll be talking about the hardest working lunch bucket type players in honor of Labor Day weekend. For the Big Four, you've always led these expeditions. Where are we starting today?
Well, I think if we do this regularly, we should call this the Shane Battier Memorial Cup, because he's kind of when I think lunch bucket guys nationally, he's the guy.
And you know what? I'm so proud of you, but some people are going to be so eye-rolling you, because your point is well made, but somebody out there is going, you picked a Duke guy as a hard-working kid?
You didn't watch him in the NBA.
I know. But just on paper, people are going, yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, he's the guy. So which team do you want to start with? Should we start with we should start with the Vikings, because it's the week before, and I think this is fairly easy to the point.
Are you going current or historically first?
I think it was really easy current, and I did go historical.
All right, so current, I think I'm going to be different than you, and mine's very much a know your audience pick, but go ahead.
Mine is Harrison Phillips. He is a nose tackle who doesn't belong at nose tackle. He does all these little things, like in the Buffalo game a couple years ago, where the quick snap and he got his hand on it. He does all the little things, shows up every game, playing completely out of position because he's 15 pounds, 20 pounds lighter than
playing a nose tackle.
And so for me, it's him, and it's not because of the national accolades he gets for being a good guy. It's because that guy shows up and plays a position that's tougher than nails, already too short, not athletic enough, and he just keeps making plays.
And defensively, I think you're right. And defensively, I think that position kind of lends itself to that label. The offensive guy that I picked, this position lends itself to that label as well. And I didn't know your audience pick. I took C.J. Ham.
Oh, yeah.
Partly because I'm not sure how he continues to stay on this team, and I don't mean that as a negative statement. He makes a position that is fading out of the league entirely, somehow still important to the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I know that if he so much as 3 carries for 4 yards, it's going to lead every newscast in our area, and I kind of eye roll and chuckle at that.
Yep.
But for some reason, he's still been a key cog because he just works and gets it done.
And in the running back room, he's the guy that can take the players who are having a bad period of time or are young or inexperienced and help walk them through the game as well. I thought you were going to go to our North Carolina State audience and talk Garrett Bradbury.
I was not, because I'll tell you what, whoever's packing his lunch, he's a few sandwiches short a little too often. So I did not go that direction, but I went with C.J. Ham currently because, again, I think the fullback position is just kind of like that. But again, I think the fullback position is on hiatus for a lot of teams, and for Minnesota, it just hasn't been.
Let me go historical for you once.
Okay.
Tim Irwin.
Yeah.
Like, he's a guy
He's got that look.
And he played tackle for us for over a decade, and you just, I mean, the only time you'd hear of him is when he'd make a holding penalty.
Well, because he was an offensive lineman. That's the only time you hear of any of them.
Well, no, there's still
in that era, yes, it was.
Well, and we can talk about any guys since that screw up at all.
But back then,
well, no, who was the guy that held all the time next to him, the other tackle, at the same time? I always say he had big ears, but that's, anyways. That doesn't have anything to do with this. The tackle that played opposite him had holding penalties all the time. And you just didn't hear about Irwin at all because he just showed up, did his job year after year, and in a tough position against the best players on defense. And he's my definition of lunch pail for the Vikings.
So I like that a lot. And I think that this category lends itself to unsung guys, and you're Googling feverishly to find out who the tackle was opposite Tim Irwin. And I don't blame you, because my Tim Irwin memory is back when McDonald's used to give out Vikings trading cards. I think I had about 6 Tim Irwin copies. But I went with Scott Studwell. And I know that, picking a legendary player, picking an icon in a franchise doesn't lend itself to lunch bucket and hardworking and, boy, you had to grind for everything you get. Too often you think of, well, this guy's a star. Too many things came easy. When I think of Studwell, Dave, I think of specks of blood on the uniform and, doing whatever is required. So to me, that guy was hardworking by definition. I kind of miss, as athletic as linebackers are today, when the way Scott Studwell played was what that position meant.
No, I agree with that. And, frankly, it's the way we look backwards on linebackers, right? When we hold them historically dear to our hearts, that's part of it. So, I agree with that. That Studwell kind of is. Keep talking, would you?
I was going to say this tackle opposite Tim Irwin is really bugging you. I'm afraid that you're going to have your eras mixed up because I thought you were thinking of Todd Stussy, but they were several years apart. Did you just put it down because that's what you were thinking of?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Because Tim Irwin, we're talking mid to late 80s. Todd Stussy, we're talking turn of the century.
Yep. So I'm not going to say anything more about that.
Well, I'm glad I did that because I did want to reel you back into the show. Otherwise, I thought you and Google would go until noon.
Moving along.
I also wanted to pick Leroy Horde, but I thought Leroy Horde and C.J. Ham are a little too similar. But Leroy Horde really did look like he worked for everything and brought his lunch pail for everything. And I still love his line. If you need a yard, I'll get you 3. If you need 7 yards, I'll get you 3.
Yeah, no, that's very true. You could throw Asiata in that mix as well. But I think our guest is one of the biggest ones in Vikings history, and that's Vincey.
I do too. I just wish his Vikings history had been a little bit longer because there were some guys that I did want to choose, and I thought, well, if he'd been here longer than 3 years, I might have said, yeah, that's a good one.
Yep, I know. So let's shift, shall we, and go check out the Wolves. Who do you think the current Minnesota Timberwolves lunch pail guy is?
Well, currently I think it's pretty easy, but again, I was just afraid that this category would just become an ode to this type of player. The older guy that, because he's aged a bit, has to work harder. In this player scenario, he's a little bit smaller. But all of that being said and being true, I still look at the work ethic that this player instills in all the younger guys. It's Mike Conley. It just is, currently for the Timberwolves.
Well, and I see your point.
My other one would be the opposite end. It would be a big guy who's young. It'd be Naz Reid.
Nas has made something of himself, and he's a lunch bucket guy. But I think the lunch bucket guy on this team who does a little bit of everything, has had to work to get what he wants, is Nah. Like, Alexander Walker has been traded a half a dozen times, and what does he do? All he does is play defense. He can guard 1 through 4. He can put up some points.
I think if the last 2 playoff series of the year hadn't happened, I would have agreed with you. it was during those last two series where I was like, okay, the Cinderella struck midnight, stop shooting.
Yeah. Well, again, lunch bucket, not superstar.
Right. And he fits that mold.
100% fits that mold.
So what about historically? Because we were having fun with this just minutes before the show. We went from having 0 to having about 4 in a heartbeat.
Yeah, right. This one is because of the way they've played the entire time they've been in the league. They've kind of cornered the market on lunch pail guys.
And there was one
that
phrase.
was Mussey's whole thing.
Right. There was one phrase you used earlier when you were describing the Labor Day holiday, and you mentioned busting knuckles, and I went, I didn't think of Kevin Love. But at the same time, I thought, Kevin Love was not flashy. He did work hard, but he certainly didn't strike me as lunch bucket. I don't think you're going to bring a guy from UCLA whose uncle's part of the Beach Boys and say, you had to work hard.
Well, and that's not necessarily true, but you gotta also.
But he didn't
work
strike
hard
you as a grinding post player.
Right. You also have to work hard for more than, 6 months.
So we went with a lot of guys who played on the interior, and a lot of them came off the bench.
Yeah, and the lunch bucket guy in my mind for that team has always been Sam Mitchell. Like, I know what you said. He's more than that.
He fits the mold. I want this to be hardest working, and I'm not saying you're wrong because I don't think you are. But I wanted this to be hardest working that maybe doesn't get enough credit. And too often in sports, that fades into, well, he's old, and it doesn't come as easy as it should, and there's no flash to the game. But you're still right.
Yeah, there's other guys who you can put in there. Todd Murphy was that kind of guy.
I love that you pulled him out a week or two ago.
Pooh Richardson was that kind of guy, and just effort guys. But in my mind, when I say effort in Minnesota Timberwolves, it's Sam Mitchell, and then after that, it's the center, Dean
Garrett?
Yes. And so those two guys, in my mind, are the lunch pail pictures for the Timberwolves.
All right, so I went
and I didn't
similar.
say milk carton faces. I said lunch
Yeah,
pail.
milk carton would be missing, and Rashad McCanty would be my lead dog in that one.
Shabazz.
Right, guys like that. But I went similar to some of the guys you just mentioned, but I went with Gary Trent. Because
I think that's a great one.
You talk about James Harden, and you say James Harden looks like the kind of guy that should be playing at the Y. And I think you mean that because of the way he dribbles, because of the way he shoots, because of the way he scores. And the bald spot, yes. It's interesting when you and I point to bald spots to make fun of others, we really shouldn't be doing that. But at the same time,
my bald spot.
Yes, you do. Yes, your bald spot's also known as your head.
Yes.
But at the same time, I look at Gary Trent and I go, no. That's the guy that you run into playing at the Y. Because this is the guy that even when he was in his late 20s, early 30s, looked like he was about 55. Looked like he was going to come with knee pads, a headband, and every piece of artillery to protect his body that you possibly could. And I had a buddy who once told me when I worked in TV with him, he said, and I mean this as respectfully as possible, Gary Trent looked like he was playing prison rules basketball.
Yeah.
He just no holds barred. Let's go. This is going to be physical. If you stop me, but you might not.
When you were in high school and you had the intramural basketball program and the offensive line had a team.
Yes.
This is what it was like. You put your shoulder down and run. Everything he did now would be a foul.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, he was a tough guy. He was an enforcer on the basketball court. All
right, so we've got 2 down, 2 to go. We've got the Twins and the Wild left. I'm assuming you want to go to the baseball diamond first.
Yeah, let's do that first because I think I want to do historically first because I think a name that gets lost in time, but who's kind of the definition of this for me is Mike Marshall.
Okay.
The mechanical man, the machine.
Right. Not to be confused with the Dodgers Mike Marshall.
3 years in a row with the Twins. He was in 180 games as a relief pitcher. Like he was in every other game, grinding away. He had, mid-30s saves one year. Like that was a terrible pitching staff. He was it, and he was in there every game. It seemed like every game, taking the ball, didn't get hurt. Like that guy to me is lunch pail as a pitcher.
I like that pull because it's a harder one and it's a deep cut. It's off the radar, however you want to phrase it. I don't think that mine is until you really sit and think about it because there's only a handful of guys that were on both world championship teams for the Twins. Oh. And the lunch bucket guy that I picked is one of them, but I'm curious if you're going to get the right one.
Wow. All right. No, because my first guess was you're just going to say Gaetti because
first of all, I wouldn't because he wasn't on both. He was only on the one.
Well, no, that's why I thought the first thing you were going to say is that.
Okay.
Well, so it's
you're on the right side of the infield, or should I say the left? I went with Greg Gagne.
Yeah, no, Gagne's a good one
because Greg Gagne, he didn't make anything look easy, but he was very good at a lot of things. I mean, he ran the bases well. He was a great fielding shortstop. Did he hit well? Let's not pretend that was the case. But ironically, both years the Minnesota Twins won the World Series, Greg Gagne hit 265, which I believe was above where he was as a career hitter.
He was dangerous too. He had a little pop.
And he had a little bit of postseason flair to him. Greg Gagne wasn't a guy that was a must-see at bat. You probably kind of went, well, let's hope we get something out of this. But it was never as bad as it looked like it should have been either. Very susceptible to a curveball down and away.
Yes,
but we always talk about shortstops, leaders, captains of the infield. That became more of a subject in the last 20 years. Greg Gagne was well before that. The Twins had it.
How many people do you think first said Dan Gladden and then said Gary Gaetti?
Well, nobody said Gaetti because of the only one World Series. I will say that Gladden was a thought of mine and really probably could have been on this list, and I probably should have put him on this list. It's just too bad I can't stand him now. As a radio play-by-play guy, he's awful. And of course, we've heard some things from people with the Twins about how he acts, and I like him even less.
We have a plethora of tough guy. We loved them because of their effort relievers. Senior Smoke.
Yeah.
We had Glenn Perkins. Eddie, Everyday Eddie. All these guys that were lunch pail guys in the bullpen who just continued to grind away until we showed them the door. And so I think that's one thing, and you'd said it earlier, and I was thinking about it, is middle relievers, because they tried to start when they were kids and failed, and they don't have enough stuff to be a closer. They've had to overcome a lot just to get to the majors.
Right.
And once they're there, they hold on with both hands.
Does that bring you to your current one? Because I said Griffin Jackson might be the best choice because he's been the best at a whole lot of things for the Twins. I gave you mine, and you said, well, I'm going to write that down now because I think we agree on it.
Yeah, I think that this year it's easy to say Willie Castro.
It is.
Because he not only does he play every game, not only is he an all-star, which is great, but he is Mr. Reliable. Like, you put him anywhere you want. You know he's going to be healthy. You know he's going to be able to play, and he can play 8 of the 9 positions anyway, or 7 of the 9 anyway, well.
Right. And I didn't pick Willie, and I did a little bit of hypocrisy here, maybe a lot of it, because I said, please don't make this about the old guy who just has to work hard because he's old. But then you look at the Twins and the proverbial old guy out on the field, I don't know that he necessarily has to work hard because this old guy does make it look pretty natural. Has plenty of pop, professional at bats, still a switch hitter, borderline Gold Glove at first. Carlos Santana has given these guys everything they could ask.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And he's easy to forget about. Like, I've been trying to put somebody else at first base all year, forgetting we have a first baseman. If Correa could play through injury, and, I'm not there, I don't know how bad the injury is, but he's a guy like last year, you could really have said he was the lunch pail guy.
You don't normally look at a superstar and go, that's also your lunch bucket player, but Correa would fit that.
Yep, he would have fit. Now, this year, he's just not available, which is kind of the opposite of the lunch pail guy, right? But last year, man, he fought through some stuff to keep playing, and his average wasn't good and all that because he was on the field. And so, but this year's a little different, but I just wanted to give him a hat tip for last year.
All right, so to wrap up the Twins, imagine if I would have given you a clue and said this: I'm going to give the best Twin to wear number 7, my lunch bucket player, and I went with Greg Gagne. People would be screaming at me.
Yeah, nope, because the other one wasn't. Like,
what was wrong with Denny Hawkins?
That's not fair. Joe Mauer was a lunch pail guy because how easy would it have been for him to take less at bats? He was already in the Hall of Fame when he quit playing catcher. I mean, those years that he was a middling first baseman, he showed up, he played defense, he hit into a double play once a game, and if he got lucky, he got a double, but he showed up.
Which I appreciate that take, but at the same time, if you're an avid fan of this show, go back to the Northland Sports Page podcast the week that Joe Mauer got elected and get Dave Cook's takes. They're a little different than that one, but I appreciate it either way. We'll close with the Wild, and then we'll go to Mr. Montgomery and talk a little foundation.
So there's 2 guys that really, really fit this on the current roster, and one kind of embraces it and uses it as a badge on the front of his shirt. And so I'm not sure he qualifies. You can't say, hey, Marcus Foligno can't say, look at me, I'm the biggest lunch bucket player. It's like giving yourself your own nickname. I think the biggest lunch bucket player on that team is Eric Sinek, and I'm not sure it's close.
Right. I was going to say, I know we're pressed for time. So I know I'm big on let's get back on schedule. So I could say, yep, so we can move along. But I can say, yep, because there's no way I can disagree.
Who is your all-timer then? Because I think the all-timer is fairly easy as well.
Is it Koivu on purpose? Because for me, I was wanting to go with Chris Stewart because I loved Chris Stewart. But Chris Stewart didn't play long enough.
So Willie Mitchell never came to mind?
Didn't really for me.
For
a
me,
guy like
Willie
Philippe
Mitchell's
Kuba would have.
Yeah, he wasn't there long enough. Willie Mitchell played every game for many years and just kept grinding away.
Well, if you want to go that route, that'd be Nick Schultz.
Yeah, okay.
With games played, that'd be Nick Schultz.
Yeah, Nick Schultz would be a very good answer as well.
Yeah.
So there's some pretty good players there, and hockey players like to be lunch bucket guys, but some of them really, really are.
Well, I think the problem or the positive depends on how the season's about to go. For the Wild is they've got a plethora of lunch bucket guys. Do they have anybody who can just use natural skill?
I know you don't like me focusing on Scholastica hockey, but they've got a kid named Nathan Adrian who is the ultimate bucket player in Division III.
Now, you keep putting words in my mouth with places that I work. You said, I don't like when you focus on Scholastica hockey. I work there. I have no problem with it. He said, I'm not a fan of the Duluth East football program. What other falsities do you have today? Brian, you're really tall. So that'll do it for one segment. We're bumping out with the song Work. Hopefully I still have work after Dave's comments. We'll talk to Derek Montgomery about his latest foundation in just a moment. Northland Sports Page, we're here till noon. I hope they won't fire me here, will they? Stick around. We'll be right back. Back here on the Northland Sports Page, Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook, Little Black Eyed Peas. Let's get it started. We started at 10. That's important to note because some people got confused last week because we started at 9. But back to whatever we know is normal this week.
My alarms got confused. It woke me up an hour early as well. I was like, what are you doing? I don't have to wake up right now. But then realized that the alarms don't do this on their own. So I had to look in the mirror.
I was going to say, somebody must have done that. And unless Dana's playing a cruel joke on you, which let's not put it past her, I think that was on you.
Yeah, nope, that one was pretty much on me. But she did say, hey, buddy, your alarm just went up. Get off. Or your alarm just went off. Get up. And I said, no, that was a mistake.
Absolutely. But let's get it started is an apropos statement for this segment because we like to talk about things getting started, especially in the world of sports. We got this show started almost 7 years ago. It took a while to, how we'll say, build a foundation, get a following, and we're going to talk to a gentleman who is literally building a foundation here in just a moment.
Yeah, and we talked about lunch pail guys just a minute ago.
Sports photographers, and he's the best.
Yeah, one of the biggest lunch pail guys in our community. We're about to talk to him about his new foundation, but we talked, what does lunch pail mean? Work hard, show up. Well, guess who does that?
I was going to say, this guy does that at just about any sports venue you can find. So without further ado, let's bring him in. He's one of our favorite people. Derek Montgomery, good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Brian.
Good to talk to you. Always is. Let's talk about some new beginnings because I've seen it on social media and I want to know more about it. You and your lovely wife, Kristin, have decided to start a foundation to benefit young athletes. I'm going to leave it there and give you the floor. Tell us how.
Sure. Thanks for the platform today. I'd actually like to pass this off to Kristin. We've been working on this together, but it was Kristin who came to me with the idea initially, and I listened to her. And as with all things, it was typically a very good idea. So I'll let her kind of talk about it. And here you go.
Absolutely. Good morning to my friend Kristin Montgomery.
Hi. Good morning, Brian.
How are you? Tell me about the beginnings of this.
Yeah, so doing great over here, and really it's been something that's been on my heart for a couple of years now, and just figuring out a more substantial way to give back to the Duluth community. I grew up playing sports in the community. We've got 3 kids that are active and playing sports also in the community, and as we kind of work through and work in Derek's business, we've noticed that, there's some associations where numbers are starting to suffer a little bit, and there's, areas where, kids are starting to participate less, especially in some of these athletics that maybe are starting to cost a little more. The cost of sports are really only going up at this point. So that's kind of where the idea came from. So we've historically been able to give back through the photography business to lots of associations. And this is another way we can actually give back, hopefully in a bigger way, and improve registration numbers and get kids playing more sports.
So you mentioned that this has been on your heart for a long time, and I've just seen it on social media really in the last couple weeks. So tell me about kind of the timeline for this. It sounded like it was your brainchild for a while, but when did it really become a reality?
Yeah, so about a year and a half, we started the buildings of it, getting registered, going through the process to become a nonprofit organization, building up the website, building the branding, which took about, overall, we started, after getting some of that initial stuff, it was about a 5-6 month build up to the actual launch of the website of the foundation and as a nonprofit status.
So you mentioned building the website. I'm glad you said that because I went to the website both yesterday and this morning. It's the Montgomery Sports Foundation. Give the website, and then when you go to it, I think this is beautiful because I want to give you the platform today to share as much about it as you want. But when you go to the website, how it works is really laid out beautifully for everybody.
Sure. The website is montgomerysf.org. And, right now we're kind of in the building awareness and building our endowment phase. I guess the mission of our foundation is just to make sure that every kid has an opportunity to participate in athletics, regardless of their financial situation. And we don't want to let financial barriers, prevent anyone from being able to play a sport. Because we know, through plenty of research that people who are active, who get to participate in sports, typically have better outcomes when they, become adults. And some of the stats that we've kind of found and that we emphasize on our site, there's lower obesity risk, a lot less depression, higher college graduation rates, and just being more active in general. And so at this point, you can go to our website, kind of find out about what we're about, and hopefully at this point, if you find out that, or if you think that's something you want to help out with, there are methods and ways there to donate to this fund. Either one-time donations, you can do monthly donations, and we are hoping to begin working with associations and families this next spring. And so think like next baseball season, next lacrosse season, that type of thing.
And I'm glad you mentioned a multitude of sports because that was going to be my next question. Now, there are different sports that have different costs. Different sports have different numbers in terms of participants. And as a result, different sports get different amounts of attention, good or bad. But with this foundation, you've mentioned athletes and just being able to participate in sports. So I'm guessing the sport doesn't matter. If you're a hockey player, if you're a basketball player, if you're a lacrosse player, if you're a cross-country runner, are you going to help everybody universally here?
Yeah, that is the goal. We're working on, we've already got some meetings set up with some of the associations in Duluth, and we're going to be working through just the process of how we're going to impact those different associations. We're going to be focused on recreational youth sports, all the way youth up through age 18 or up through graduation. We are going to be looking at covering the high schools as well. So there's a lot of kids that play high school sports, but making sure that those registration fees get covered as well. We are not going to be, if elite AAA traveling type ball clubs or hockey clubs, anything like that, those are not included within the foundation's focus right now. So we're going to be more focused on the recreational, the local, and so kids being able to play here and play on local teams.
And when you say local, Kristin, that's a perfect segue as well, because this region, the Northland, is fairly large, and hopefully our listening audience is too. So we might have folks in Cloquet, we might have folks in Two Harbors. We know we have folks in Proctor. Is this Duluth-centric? How far does the Northland coverage go for folks that can get helped by this or help you help others?
Yep, that's a great question. We are right now focused solely on Duluth, but our goal is to expand it definitely into our surrounding areas, into our Proctors, into our Escos, into our Cloquets. I know the photography business serves that part as well. So our foundation is hoping to do that. But as with all foundations, in order to be able to support these kids, we need the support of those communities, business support, partnerships with businesses. We're looking into multiple grants in the communities that are hopefully going to help build this to be successful. So, that's our biggest plug right now is really to, if we want to see, and we've actually got some board members that are coming from local communities, not just the Duluth area, and that want to be involved in that. So we know that they're going to be helpful in getting those communities involved too, so we can bring this to our neighboring communities.
Talking to Derek and Kristin Montgomery about the Montgomery Sports Foundation. Dave, this is a neat concept altogether. We know that we love helping kids.
Absolutely. It's the whole foundation, speaking of the show, is where we started talking about that. So being able to support the Montgomerys and their program here is something that we will hold dear to our hearts, and we will help where we can.
Absolutely. So again, more on the Montgomery Sports Foundation, which is still very much in its infancy, but I know you guys gave some methods to help out. What's the best first step right now if you're someone that wants to help this grow? Because I'll just tell you guys, everybody I've talked to about it said, absolutely, I'm in. What can we do? But then at the same time, there might be somebody listening out there going, hey, I got kids in sports and we are on financially tough times. What's the best way for somebody in that scenario to get help from you eventually down the road?
Yep. So to answer that first question, the best thing that you can do is check out our website, montgomerysf.org, and there's a donate option up there. And so looking in, if you have more questions about it or want to endow more into it, then you're comfortable, or you want to talk, or then you're comfortable giving on the website and you want to talk to us about it. There's contact information on that page. And then once we do officially open it up to the community for applications, those families are going to want to work with their associations first, and we're going to have those processes to where they're going to apply through the association. And once we have them approved, then they're going to be able to register for their sport, and they're going to be given a code essentially to plug in to remove that registration fee. And then the association and the foundations will work together to make sure those registration fees are paid. So for the most part, families will go through the association, but it'll be on all the association websites as to the process of getting assistance through the foundation.
Kristin and Derek Montgomery, you guys are outstanding. I hope you knew that well before this segment, but this segment was great, and what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. Thank you for being pillars in our community. Thank you for this idea. Thank you for using our platform to get the word out today.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Those are two of my favorites, Derek and Kristin Montgomery, and their heart in this community and in sports, always in the right place.
Well, and we talk about them being our favorites and seeing them all the place. They're genuinely good people. Like, that's the thing about the Montgomerys, is they're just good people. They're salt of Duluth. And so I think if anybody's going to be successful at something like this, Brian, it's a family that everybody kind of cares about already.
No question about that. We hope that we were able to help them because they're looking to help everybody. Bumping out with, ooh, child, things are going to get a little bit easier because that's what the Montgomerys are trying to do. Yep. It's always easy to talk to Dave Hoops. That's what we're going to do next. Stick around. We'll be right back. Back on the Northland Sports Page, little Hank Williams Jr., all my rowdy friends. My rowdiest friend is Dave Cook. I'm Brian Prudhomme. We're back.
That's not saying
we're
much
here
today,
with you till
right?
noon. That just means I need to meet more rowdy people.
Yeah, apparently.
But we're always having a good time. And, of course, when I think of that song, I think more of the theme from Monday Night Football. And football on the NFL side is right around the corner. The season opens Thursday. The Packers play Friday. And then teams we care about play Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy enough to overlook the other teams because your team's coming up, and that's kind of what we're doing.
And we're okay with doing that, and Dave Hoops made a request last week at the end of his segment. Can we do a little football preview this week? So with him, we're going to.
Absolutely.
We'll probably dive deeper into the Vikings next Saturday because that'll be the eve of Game 1 at the New York Giants. But we're going to talk plenty of Vikings today. We're going to do it here. We're going to do it with PA. We're going to do it with Vency. It's that time of year.
It is, and we're looking forward to it. This is going to be fun. Hi, Dave.
Dave Hoops, good morning, buddy. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Nice to chat with you this morning. Beautiful day.
Always nice to chat with you. Make our Saturdays better each and every time you're with us, and you've been the most consistent in terms of being with us, and it's a good time of year. This is fun because Dave said it last night during high school football. We've got that started. Baseball's in the stretch run. The NFL's right around the corner. College football started. U.S. Open tennis. You and I love that. It's a good time of year.
2 weeks from the NHL preseason.
There's that too.
It's all great, and just quickly, the U.S. Open. You guys, I'm sure you know what happened. Alcaraz and Djokovic both lost in the third round.
I was going to say some of the stars bowed out a little bit early, but yes, the U.S. Open tennis tournament. I was telling my wife earlier this week while I was watching it. I said, "This is a bucket list item for me." I know it's a different area of New York, but there's something about the tennis at night with the stadium lights, the music. I like the French. I like Wimbledon. But they're all very formal, and the U.S. Open just seems like a giant party.
Yeah, well, I was up till 2:30 in the morning watching live
So
tennis.
you had one.
Night.
You had a giant party. That a boy.
Yeah, me and my dog. Yep. But great tennis, and it's really fun in this time of the year. I hope to get there as well, Brian. I have plans maybe next year. We'll see.
Well, let's go. Let's do a little Northland Sports Page from Flushing Meadow. I'm in if you are.
Sounds great.
We'll see if we can make that happen. We'll have the Flushing Meadow Ale. Is that something Hoops can come up with? Because, again, I'm excited, not just because I love the folks with the lift at WDIO, but I'm really excited for your blueberry beer.
Yep, September 6th. That's the big date. We've got the artwork done. Bailey's been doing all kinds of spots about it. It should be really tasty.
It really should be, and I know you said September 6th because that is the right date, but has it sunk into you yet that September 6th is also known as Friday? I mean, this is the last day of August. The calendar's moving, my guy.
Yep, and I don't have kids in school anymore, but many, many, many people do, and that's what everybody's talking about. And I'm just not willing to let summer go, kind of how I roll, so I'm just going to continue to think sunny.
Well, and you're perfectly okay to do that because high of 85 today. Technically, by calendar, summer's not over until late September. And as long as the Twins have a heartbeat in a pennant race, it's summer for me, too.
That's true right there. Absolutely.
Speaking of sunny...
Huge heartbeat, huge heartbeat.
Right.
You know this.
An entire EKG, if we're being
card.
honest. Yes, they're right there.
Yep.
Speaking of thinking sunny, you saw him up close and personal. You went to one of the best Twins games, unfortunately, over the past week, if you will, because they won when you were there last Saturday, but they hadn't won again until last night.
I was thinking that too, but as an optimist, we've got more games ahead. We've got KC, we've got Cleveland. I have this fantasy that they can, win the division and get a bye and go right to the second round. No, that's just how I choose to think. So I'm going to keep on keeping on with that.
Well, I'll tell you what, if whatever Pablo Lopez is doing for a pre-start routine, if everybody else could do it, they'll be fine because he just does this. He has some rocky stretches in the beginning of the season, but down the stretch, he is the guy. 20-plus scoreless. Hard to beat that.
Yeah, and I got to sit with Finn on the outfield wall, just right on top of Max Kepler. First row. I've never done that before. It was a great seat. Balls were coming up there all the time. We missed a couple home run balls. It was a great game, that St. Louis game with Sonny, and we prevailed. You're right, last win at home.
Yeah, that hopefully changed for a while now with last night's win. I hope the Twins can get healthy at the expense of the Toronto Blue Jays here. Be interesting today because a very familiar name, Jose Barrios, will be going against the Twins again. Dave Cook, he's done well against his former team.
He has, but I mean, once again, as parts fall off and deals are made, at what point did this team not really his anymore? You know what I mean?
The other thing that's going to be interesting, though, is the last time he was there facing the Twins, they pulled him after 3 innings during the postseason. I don't think, unless they shell him, that'll happen tonight.
Yeah, that's one of those questions that'll be mulled around in baseball for a long, long time.
No
Why
doubt.
pull him?
And Dave Hoops, I love talking baseball with you, but you said last week, can we do a little football preview? So ask and you shall receive. I'm going to give you the floor first. Who are your playoff teams? Let's start in the NFC, and then we'll go to the AFC after that, as it stands on August 31st.
Okay, so what do we have? NFC East, it's going to be Dallas, maybe, and Philly is going to be in the wild card. Chase, okay?
Okay.
And I'll go quick. NFC North, I'm going to pick the Vikings no matter what. That's what I do.
I love you.
Nobody else will do it. You guys can go ahead and not do it. I'm going to do it. And then let's have probably the Detroit Lions absolute wild card. NFC South, I think that Tampa Bay is still the team to beat, but Atlanta's going to be in the mix. These are pretty obvious picks. And the NFC West, Niners all the way. I think the Niners are going to be maybe Super Bowl champs this year. And then the Rams are really worth watching. And I think AZ should be in the wild card mix. And I think that people are kind of sleeping on them a little bit. They're healthy. They're young. Kyler's healthy somewhat. So I think that's my wild card kind of dark horse.
I don't mind that. I'll go next in the NFC East. I agree with you. I think Dallas is going to win it this time. I still don't trust Dallas when there's money on the table, as my co-host would say, but I think they'll have enough to win the East. I do like Philly as a wild card. In the North, I love your Vikings take. I just can't echo it. Give me the Lions. I'm going to hold off on the wild card because I want to find a way to keep Green Bay out of there. I think reality will hit a little bit, but I still wonder, even if reality hits, if they're able to be a top 7 team, if you will. NFC West, I agree. I think the Niners are going to win the whole darn thing. NFC West, wild card, I like the Rams. I just don't know how they keep doing this. Is Sean McVay that much of a genius? I'd like to put them in the wild card mix. The South, I totally agree. Tampa's the team to beat. I just don't think Atlanta's going to get it done because everybody up here told me Kirk can't get it done. So why would I take Atlanta? Dave Cook, the part I can't decide is if I have to put Green Bay in the mix for the playoffs or not.
Well, you hit it on the head. If Love is healthy, they're going to be okay. And if he's not, they'll be drafting with the Vikings. So I'm going to go with Philly. I think that Dallas is going to implode. I think that if we do that, I think that the Lions are in my opinion, the easy choice probably, and I'll pick them for the Super Bowl from the NFC. I think if you're picking anybody but San Francisco to win the West, you're fooling yourself.
I was going to say, you live in one of those cities and you're fearing for your life.
And then we've said it all along, Kirk Cousins by himself will get a team to 10 wins, and he'll also keep them to 10 wins. Like he's not going to get you to 12, and he's not going to let you lose. He's not going to let you win just 6.
Well, I'd even say 10 might be high. I'd say he'll get you to 8, and then the rest after that is.
I'm picking Atlanta to win that division. So there you are.
All right. So how about the AFC, Dave Hoops? Who you got?
Okay. In the East, I think the Jets are going to be the real thing this year. I still think that Buffalo is going to be the wild card, but I think the Jets are going to win it, which is kind of weird to say. But Miami, I think, is going to be in the mix. Obviously, they're going to be over 500, but I think there'll be a little drop down. North, it's Baltimore. That's obvious. And this game on Thursday is going to be really fun next week. So after that, Cincinnati is definite wild card material, and maybe they'll be pushing Baltimore this year if Burrow stays healthy. AFC South, I think the Texans are going to be quite good, but I don't think that CJ is going to be, the wonder kid he was last year. And with Jacksonville, in the wild card mix. AFC West, I love the Broncos so much. I can't pick them like I picked the Vikings because I have to have some reality. But, I think after KC, I don't think anybody's going to the playoffs from that division. And there you go.
I like that a lot. I echo most of it, but again, not all of it. AFC East, I'm in love with Miami. Don't ask me why. I know their offense is good. I know their defense shouldn't be. They did make some acquisitions that I think is going to make them quite good. I think Buffalo is going to fall off big time. I agree with you, Dave Cook. New England might be one of the worst teams in the NFL.
God, it's nice to say that, isn't it?
It is for you. But at the same time, I do like the Jets. I don't like them enough to win the division. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be healthy. I know either way he's not that young. I don't think we're going to see Aaron Rodgers of old regardless. So I'll give them a wild card, but I like Miami to win that division. The North, boy, Dave Hoops, you convinced me. It is Baltimore, even though I want it to be Cincinnati. I like them both. Cleveland will find a way to disappoint because that's what they do. And with Pittsburgh, pick a quarterback, they're both bad. The AFC West, it's Kansas City and a bunch of junior varsity teams. And with the AFC South, I love the Texans. I'm afraid for Jacksonville that Trevor Lawrence is going to become Kirk Cousins. Really well paid and really slightly above average.
Yeah, no doubt, right? I think in the East, it's the Jets. Here's the thing. If Miami goes off to start the year, right, if they're 6-0 or whatever, I'll change my tune. But I don't think that team with that kind of speed when it gets closer to the end of the year, that they have the horsepower to beat like a Baltimore in a playoff game.
Well, on where are they playing and on what surface and in what weather?
And so I will pick them for a wild card, but I can't pick them to win the division. And I agree with you. I think Buffalo's going to crash and burn this year. They got a quarterback who's not accurate, but had really good players around him, and now those players.
Now he doesn't have any good players around him.
Now those players are leaving. The North, I don't think the North is as simple as Baltimore, right? I think Cleveland's got the best defense in the NFL. So if Deshaun Watson shows up at all, or if they switch to Jameis, and Jameis right now might be a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson.
Cleveland is a team that just can't get out of its own way in the fact that it's Cleveland. They've got to do what the Lions did because everybody said, yeah, they look good, but it's the Lions. I feel like that's the Browns' mantra right now.
Cincinnati is the problem when it's like the Vikings were a few years ago. When you invest in all skill players and nothing on the line, you're going to get your quarterback
pushed around.
hurt.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're there. And I have a buddy who's a Steelers fan, and so we talk about the Steelers a lot. And if they get anything from quarterback, they're the team.
But they're both bad.
But if Wilson finds the fountain of youth, even if it's not all the way back to his prime, if he finds pre-Denver Russell Wilson, they're going to win that division.
Can we just anoint that they'll go 9-8 because Mike Tomlin won't have a losing season, but Pittsburgh's not very good. Let's just nail it in.
But here's the thing. They are. Their receivers are good. They're not great. Pickens is going to be that guy. Their running back, Najee Harris, is fine. The tight end, Freiermuth, is probably the best tight end in that. Their defense is fine at all levels. Their cornerbacks are good. They're a decent quarterback away from being the best team in that division. And
Did you just say Freiermuth might be the best tight end? You didn't finish. Were you about to say division?
Yes, in that division.
Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely died.
Who's hurt all the time. And
I'll take Njoku over Freiermuth,
who's
too.
also had 1 year.
Right.
So I'm going with him as the best tight end in that division.
I'll revise that and say Freiermuth is a tight end in that division. Go ahead.
So anyways, I think Pittsburgh wins it. I think they do get a little bit of something from the corpse of Russell Wilson, and I think they win it. South, it's got to be Houston.
With the investments they made, it better be.
Jackson, I agree with you on Trevor Lawrence, by the way.
Fast track to Kirk Cousins.
Really close. So the interesting team is going to be Indy, because if Richardson becomes what we think, we're not talking about him this year, but we're talking about him next year.
And some people still think that Jonathan Taylor will become Jonathan Taylor again. If he does, there's something.
Right. They really are weird, right? They are on a cusp of being awful or pretty good. Yeah. They're not on the cusp of just being average.
Boy, does that sound familiar.
Yes, it does. And it's Kansas City with a bullet, and goodness gracious. I mean, Harbaugh is not going to let the San Diego Chargers be bad, right? But those other two teams, that Raiders team might be the worst team in the league.
Like I said, it's Kansas City and a bunch of junior varsity teams. But I tell you what, you'll find varsity level beer at Hoops Brewing. And I know, Dave Hoops, you love good questions from Dave Cook. We've only got time for one today. We got PA in 3 minutes.
Oh, we can't even do the big one then. I'll have the big one for next week.
All right.
So then I'm going to do something real simple, real fast, guys. We were driving the other day, and we stopped at a McDonald's, which of course I can't eat at, but everybody was like, "Oh boy, we're going to our favorite fast food restaurants." So I'm going to make it a little less obvious. I'm going to ask you about your favorite fast food. If you had a chance to stop at any, it doesn't matter which restaurant, what are you buying? Which one are you picking out, and what's the food?
Interesting, Dave Hoops. You're such a fit, healthy guy. Do you even do fast food anymore? Did we somehow lose Dave Hoops? There he is.
No, taco trucks and things like that. Like Oasis Del Norte's truck. I'm going to go with street tacos, and I think that counts as fast food, so I don't have to guess one of the majors. How's that sound?
I was going to say, if we get to go that route, I'm going Tom's Taste of Chicago and getting a Chicago dog. Do it. Everybody here in the Northland, they're delicious. But one of the majors I love, and this is TMI, but even though it doesn't always love me back, I love the spicy chicken sandwich from Wendy's.
Oh, very good.
I'm getting that all the time.
That's kind of the thing I'm looking for.
What can you even have?
I can go to Five Guys.
All right.
Yeah, because
in July?
They make everything they make everything separate, and I can watch them do it. So that's the one I will go to. I can go to Herbs and Gerbs too.
I'll tell you what, Dave Hoops, you've been our one go-to for just about every show. Give everybody the best reason to come to the brewery again this weekend, because it's a long one. Might as well take advantage.
Yeah, thanks. And let's do playoffs like halfway through the year. Thanks for indulging me there.
No doubt.
The brewery, we've got the blueberry wheat. We've got all the other fruit beers. We've got UK Pale and Amber. I really suggest trying these beers. And then very soon we'll release Wiesen, our Oktoberfest beer. And, of course, we got brand new batch of Pale Ale, which remains our standard, our best-selling beer. Everybody loves it, including myself. And then all the sports all the time. Have a great Labor Day weekend, everybody.
Dave Hoops, you're the best. We'll talk next Saturday, but I'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll see you at our Northland Sports Page Fantasy Draft.
Can't wait. See you then.
All right. That's our guy, Dave Hoops. That's hour number one. Hour two starts with PA. We talk more Vikes just 1 week and a day away. Stick around. We'll be right back.